All right, let's go.
Number 12, the anglerfish, a living lure with a male fused into its body. Deep below 1,000 meters in a region called the Midnight Zone, where sunlight has never once reached, the anglerfish drifts in complete darkness with a single glowing light suspended above its head. That light is a modified dorsal spine called an elysium, tipped with a bulb of bioluminescent bacteria the fish cultivates and controls, called an esca. It dangles the glowing lure in front of its enormous crescent-shaped mouth, mimicking the movement of a small prey animal. Anything curious enough to investigate gets engulfed by jaws capable of unhinging and a stomach capable of expanding to swallow prey larger than the anglerfish itself. The genuinely alien part of anglerfish biology is not the lure, it is reproduction. In the crushing darkness of the deep ocean, finding a mate of the same species is extraordinarily difficult. Male anglerfish and many species are a fraction of the size of females, sometimes less than 1/10 their length, and are born with no functional digestive system at all. A male's only purpose is to locate a female using highly developed olfactory organs, bite into her body, and permanently fuse to her. Over time, his eyes, fins, and internal organs degrade away entirely. His circulatory system merges with hers. He becomes, quite literally, a permanent parasitic sperm-producing appendage attached to her body for the rest of her life. Some female anglerfish have been found carrying multiple fused males simultaneously. Number 11, the Goblin Shark, a face that unfolds like something from a nightmare. The Goblin Shark is often described as a living fossil, the last surviving member of a lineage stretching back roughly 125 million years, virtually unchanged in that time. It patrols depths between 100 and 1,300 meters with a long, flattened, blade-like snout studded with electroreceptors called ampullae of Lorenzini, which detect the faint electrical fields produced by muscle contractions of hitting prey in total darkness. What makes the goblin shark genuinely disturbing to watch is its feeding mechanism. Its jaws are not fixed in place the way jaws are in most animals. When a goblin shark strikes, its entire jaw assembly launches forward out of its face on specialized elastic ligaments, extending nearly to the tip of its snout before snapping shut around its prey and retracting back into position. The entire strike takes a fraction of a second, one of the fastest jaw extension mechanisms recorded in any vertebrate. Its skin lacks the pigmentation most sharks have because there's no light in its environment to hide from and no reason to invest energy in coloration. Its pale pinkish hue comes directly from blood vessels visible through translucent skin. Most specimens ever recovered have come from depths where human eyes have never seen one alive in its natural environment. Number 10, the Vampire Squid. Neither squid nor octopus, and it does not hunt. Despite its name, the vampire squid, Vampiroteuthis infernalis, literally translating to vampire squid from hell, is neither a true squid nor an octopus. It belongs to its own entirely separate taxonomic order, the sole surviving member of a lineage that has existed largely unchanged since the Jurassic period, over 100 million years ago. It lives in the oxygen minimum zone, typically between 600 and 900 meters deep, where oxygen levels are so low that almost nothing else can survive there long term. A hostile buffer zone, the vampire squid has evolved specialized low oxygen metabolism to exploit almost exclusively for itself. Its body is a deep reddish black, webbed with a cloak-like membrane connecting its 8 arms, lined with soft, fleshy spines rather than the suckers found on true squid and octopuses. Contrary to its horror movie name, the vampire squid is not a predator at all. It is a passive detritivorize, using 2 long retractable filaments to collect marine snow, the slow continuous drift of dead organic material, waste, and mucus falling from the ocean layers above, and coats its catch in mucus before eating it. When threatened, rather than releasing ink like other cephalopods, it turns its cloak-like webbing inside out over its body, exposing rows of spines and forming a defensive posture scientists call the pineapple pose, while simultaneously ejecting a cloud of bioluminescent mucus from the tips of its arms to disorient predators.
Number 9. Bathynomus Vaderi, a giant isopod named after Darth Vader, discovered in 2025. Giant isopods are the deep sea's answer to the woodlouse in your garden, the same basic body plan scaled up to horrifying proportions by a phenomenon called deep sea gigantism, where cold temperatures, high pressure, and scarce food favor larger, slower metabolizing bodies. In March 2025, researchers, including a scientist from the National University of Singapore, formally described a new species collected from deep waters off Vietnam, first observed in 2022. They named it Bathynomus Vaderi, Vaderi directly after Darth Vader, because the shape and structure of its head, viewed from certain angles, closely resembles the iconic helmet from Star Wars. Giant isopods in this genus can grow to over 50 centimeters in length, armored in overlapping segmented exoskeleton plates, capable of rolling into a defensive ball, much like their much smaller garden relatives. They are largely scavengers, feeding on whale falls and other large carcasses that sink to the ocean floor, capable of surviving extended periods, sometimes years between meals, due to an extremely slow deep-sea metabolism. Bathynomus vaderi is one of dozens of new deep-sea species formally described in 2025 alone, a reminder that the ocean floor is still producing entirely new branches of the animal kingdom's family tree on a regular basis. Number 8. The Colossal Squid, filmed alive in its natural habitat for the first time in history in 2025. The colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, is the heaviest invertebrate known to exist on Earth, estimated to reach lengths of up to 7 meters and weights exceeding 500 kilograms. It possesses the largest eyes of any known animal, roughly the size of a soccer ball, an adaptation believed to help it detect the faint bioluminescent silhouettes of approaching predators, including sperm whales, in the near-total darkness of its deep Southern Ocean habitat. For decades, the colossal squid was known almost entirely from remains recovered inside of sperm whales and from a small number of dead or dying specimens that occasionally surfaced. No scientist had ever filmed a live colossal squid in its natural deep-sea environment. That changed in 2025. Researchers aboard a Schmidt Ocean Institute expedition captured the first confirmed footage of a live colossal squid in the wild, swimming naturally at depth. The juvenile squid observed was notably small and largely transparent, a life stage almost never previously documented, offering scientists their first direct visual insight into how this species actually behaves, moves, and appears at an early stage of its life, rather than relying entirely on damaged specimens and secondhand evidence pulled from whale stomachs. Its arms and tentacles bear rotating hooks in addition to suckers, a feature unique among squid species, believed to help it grip and immobilize prey in an environment where a single failed strike could mean going without food for a very long time. Number 7. The Barreleye Fish, a transparent skull, eyes that point straight up. Few deep-sea creatures generate the same immediate visceral reaction as the barreleye fish, Macropina microstoma, when people first see it clearly. Its most striking feature is a completely transparent, fluid-filled dome covering the top of its head, through which its actual eyes, two bright green, barrel-shaped tubular structures, are oriented to point straight upward through the transparent shield, rather than forward or to the sides like almost every other fish. For decades, marine biologists knew the eyes pointed upward, but could not explain how the fish managed to feed, since its small mouth appeared to sit permanently below its upward-facing eyes, seemingly incapable of seeing anything it might be trying to eat. The Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute finally solved this in 2009, using remotely operated submersibles to observe the fish alive at depth for the first time. the barreleye's eyes can actually rotate forward within its transparent fluid-filled shield, allowing the fish to look directly ahead and track prey, typically small jellyfish tentacles and stray stinging cells stolen from siphonophores, while its rigid, transparent dome protects its extremely sensitive, light-gathering eyes from the stinging cells of the prey it is stealing food from. It lives at depths between 600 and 800 meters, and its transparent head remains one of the strangest anatomical solutions in the entire animal kingdom.
Number 6. The Gulper Eel, a mouth larger than its entire body. The Gulper eel, also known as the pelican eel, looks like a mistake of proportions. Its head and mouth make up a disproportionately enormous fraction of its total body length, with a lower jaw that unhinges and expands into a massive balloon-like pouch, structurally and functionally similar to a pelican's throat pouch, which is exactly where its common name comes from. Living at depths between 500 and 3,000 meters, in an environment where meals are unpredictable and often far apart, the Gulper eel's entire body has been shaped by a single evolutionary imperative: never turn down a meal no matter its size, because the next one might not come for a very long time. Its stomach and throat pouch can expand dramatically to accommodate prey considerably larger than its own resting body diameter. Its tail ends in a small bioluminescent pink organ that it is believed to use as a lure, flashing it to attract curious prey close enough to be engulfed by the enormous mouth waiting nearby. Despite the intimidating scale of its jaws, the Gulper eel is a relatively weak, slow swimmer with a small, poorly muscled body, relying almost entirely on the element of surprise and the sheer scale of its gape rather than speed or strength to actually catch anything. Number 5. The Frilled Shark, a sea serpent older than the dinosaurs. The frilled shark is frequently described by marine biologists as a living fossil, and the description is not an exaggeration. Its body plan has remained essentially unchanged for at least 80 million years, and its lineage traces back further still, making it one of the closest living approximations of what early sharks may have looked like. Its body is long, slender, and eel-like rather than the classic torpedo shape most people associate with sharks, an adaptation that lets it move with a serpentine, undulating swimming style closer to that of an eel than a typical shark. Its name comes from its 6 pairs of gill slits, each edged with a distinctive frilled, ruffled margin, giving its throat a decorative, almost reptilian collar-like appearance. Its mouth contains roughly 300 needle-thin, backward-curving, trident-shaped teeth, arranged in around 25 rows, a dental arrangement built specifically to snag and hold onto soft-bodied prey like squid, preventing any possibility of escape once caught, rather than to slice or crush. Frilled sharks live at depths typically between 500 and 1,200 meters, and encounters with live specimens at the surface are so rare that each documented sighting, including a widely reported live capture off the coast of Japan in 2007, becomes significant scientific news, precisely because so little is directly observed about how this ancient predator behaves in its natural deep-water environment.
Number 4. The Dumbo Octopus, the deepest living octopus ever recorded. Named for the large ear-like fins protruding from the sides of its mantle, an unmistakable visual echo of the Disney elephant character, the Dumbo octopus, genus Grimpotepus, holds the record for the deepest confirmed living octopus of any species, with individuals documented at depths exceeding 7,000 meters. Unlike the far more familiar shallow water octopuses most people picture, Dumbo octopuses do not use jet propulsion by expelling water, and they do not have the ability to change color or texture dramatically for camouflage the way their shallow water relatives can. Instead, they gently flop those distinctive ear-like fins to hover and drift through the water column, using their webbed arms in a slow, undulating motion, an energy-efficient method of movement perfectly suited to an environment where food is scarce and conserving energy matters far more than speed. They swallow their prey, small crustaceans, worms, and other tiny invertebrates found on or near the seafloor whole, since the extreme pressure at their depth makes the beak-crushing feeding style used by shallow water octopuses far less practical.
Because of the extraordinary difficulty and cost of exploring the depths where they live, Dumbo octopuses remain one of the least studied and least understood cephalopod groups on the planet, with much of their basic biology, lifespan, and reproductive behavior still only partially documented. Number 3. The black swallower, a fish that eats prey 10 times its own body mass. The black swallower is a small, unassuming-looking deep-sea fish, rarely growing longer than about 25 centimeters, that possesses one of the most extreme feeding capabilities documented in any vertebrate on Earth. Its stomach is enormously elastic, capable of stretching to several times the fish's own resting body size, and its jaw and skull are hinged in a way that allows it to swallow prey items whole that are considerably larger than its own body. Documented cases include prey estimated at more than 10 times the swallower's own body mass, an almost incomprehensible ratio for any animal to manage. This extreme adaptation exists specifically because food is so unpredictable and scarce in the deep sea that passing up any potential meal, regardless of its size relative to the predator, is far greater of a risk than attempting to consume something enormous. This strategy carries a genuine and well-documented cost. Specimens have occasionally been found dead and floating near the surface, their stomachs ruptured or their bodies fatally distended, because the swallowed prey was simply too large to fully digest before bacterial decomposition inside the prey's own body produced gases that expanded faster than the black swallower could process the meal, quite literally killed by its own ambition. Number 2. The Yeti Crab, furry arms that farm their own bacteria. Discovered in 2005 near hydrothermal vents along the Pacific-Antarctic Ridge, more than 2,000 meters below the surface, the Yeti crab, Kiwa hirsuta, immediately drew attention for its startlingly hairy, pale claws and forearms, a texture and appearance unlike almost any other crustacean known at the time of its discovery. Those bristle-like hairs, called setae, are not simply decorative or sensory. They serve as a cultivation surface for colonies of chemosynthetic bacteria, which the Yeti crab actively farms using specialized mouthparts to periodically harvest and consume the bacterial growth directly off its own arms, a genuinely unusual self-sustaining food source that allows it to survive in an environment devoid of sunlight and therefore devoid of any conventional plant-based food chain. Living directly around hydrothermal vents and cold seeps, where superheated, mineral-rich water erupts from cracks in the ocean floor amid extreme pressure and near-freezing surrounding temperatures, Yeti crabs have been observed engaging in a behavior researchers have nicknamed the Kiwa dance, repeatedly and rhythmically waving their bacteria-covered claws through the plumes of chemical-rich vent water, apparently to actively promote and accelerate bacterial growth on their own bodies before harvesting it. Since the original 2005 discovery, several additional related Yeti crab species have been identified at other vent sites across the Pacific and Southern Oceans, each with slightly different specialized farming behavior adapted to its specific vent environment. Number 1. The Bioluminescent Snailfish, the first snailfish ever found to glow, discovered over 7,000 meters down in 2025. This final entry represents the newest and, in a specific and remarkable way, the most alien discovery on this entire list. In 2025, a team from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, exploring the deep Pacific at depths exceeding 7,000 meters, well within the Hadal Zone, the deepest and most extreme region of the ocean, named after Hades, recovered a small translucent fish using baited traps. Formally described and named Pseudoliparus bioluminosa, it belongs to the snailfish family, a group already well known for producing some of the deepest living fish species ever confirmed on Earth, including specimens recorded below 8,000 meters in the Mariana Trench. What makes this particular species remarkable and genuinely new to science is a glowing belly, the first confirmed instance of bioluminescence ever documented in any snailfish species. Scientists believe the light may be used to attract prey in an environment of absolute permanent darkness, or potentially to communicate with other members of its own species across the vast, largely empty stretches of the Hadal Zone, though its exact function remains unconfirmed. Only 3 specimens have ever been collected, all recovered from the same baited trap expedition, making it one of the rarest documented fish species on the planet, and a direct current demonstration that the deepest, most extreme regions of Earth's oceans are still producing genuinely new forms of biology that had never once been observed by any human being before this specific expedition.
12 creatures. A fish with a fused parasitic mate permanently attached to its body. A shark whose entire face launches forward to strike. A living fossil from the Jurassic that does not hunt at all. A newly named isopod resembling a Star Wars villain's helmet. The heaviest invertebrate on the planet filmed alive for the very first time in 2025. A fish with a transparent skull and eyes that rotate to track its own stolen meals. A mouth larger than the animal attached to it. A serpentine predator with 300 backward-curving teeth virtually unchanged for 80 million years. An octopus that flaps ears instead of jetting through the water. A fish capable of swallowing prey 10 times its own body mass, sometimes fatally. A crab that farms bacteria on its own arms and dances to grow its dinner. And a species discovered in 2025 over 7,000 meters down that turned out to be the first glowing snailfish ever recorded. The deep ocean covers more than 60% of the surface of this planet. Less of it has been mapped and explored than the surface of the Moon or Mars. Every single expedition that reaches those depths keeps finding something new. Subscribe to Cosmic Hives. See you in the next one.